Good evening, everybody. A number of breaking news stories tonight. The president today giving one of the swamp's creatures a big bear hug. President Trump dismissing reports of bad blood between he and Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell. The president saying they're working together to build support for tax cuts and the rest of the president's agenda.
We're probably now, I think, at least as far as I'm concerned, closer than ever before. And the relationship is very good. We're fighting for the same thing. We're fighting for lower taxes, big tax cuts, the biggest tax cuts in the history of our nation. We're fighting for tax reform as part of that. We are getting close to health care. We'll come up in the early to mid part of next year. We're going to have a vote. I think we already have the votes. We feel confident we have the votes. My relationship with this gentleman is outstanding, has been outstanding.
Has it really? Can McConnell be trusted? We'll take all of that and more up here tonight. Also, members of the president's cabinet have gone rogue, or have they? UN Ambassador Nikki Haley and Secretary of State Rex Tillerson spent part of the weekend insisting the United States will stay in the Iran deal despite the president's decision not to recertify the agreement Friday. What is going on? We'll take up those mixed messages with Ambassador John Bolton here in just moments. And California firefighters are finally gaining the upper hand in their battle against the worst wildfires in that state's history. We'll have a full report on the devastation that has claimed the lives of more than 40 people and forced thousands from their homes. Our top story tonight, President Trump today defending his decision to not certify the Iran nuclear deal, stressing the possibility that the agreement could soon be terminated, however.
I feel strongly about what I did. I'm tired of being taken advantage of as a nation. This nation has been taken advantage of for many, many years, for many decades, frankly, and I'm tired of watching it. But the Iran deal was something that I felt had to be done, and we'll see what phase 2 is. Phase 2 might be positive, and it might be very negative. It might be a total termination. That's a very real possibility. Some would say that's a greater possibility.
Members of the president's cabinet appear to be undercutting his message, however, at least undercutting, it appears, his decision. Their efforts to remain in the flawed agreement are palpable.
I think right now you're going to see us stay in the deal, because what we hope is that we can improve the situation, and that's the goal. So I think right now we're in the deal to see how we can make it better, and that's the goal.
Let's see if we cannot address the flaws in the agreement by staying within the agreement, working with the other signatories, working with our European friends and allies within the agreement.
Joining us tonight, former U.S. Ambassador to the United Nations and Fox News contributor John Bolton. Ambassador, good to have you with us. I've got to say I'm flummoxed. Tillerson, Haley talking with exactly the opposite tone of that of the President of the United States 2 days preceding their appearances on Sunday television. What do you believe is going on here?
Well, I think the president made it pretty clear in his speech on Friday, announcing he would not certify that the Iran deal was in the best interest of the United States, that he's very skeptical that it can be fixed. He's adopted a two-step approach. I would have just gotten out of the deal, but he's adopted a two-step approach to give Congress a chance to see if they can somehow make the situation better. But in a very important line in his speech on Friday, he said, I have this under continuous review and I could pull out at any time. Now, so let's discuss the possibility that the deal can be made better. That would mean, in my view, making sure that Iran does not have any uranium enrichment capability and no possibility of getting to a nuclear weapons breakout position. And let me say, that's not a radical position. That was the position of the Europeans in 2003 when they began these fateful negotiations with Iran. The Europeans were so tough back then that they said, we won't even negotiate with Iran unless they suspend all uranium enrichment activities.
For crying out loud, I mean, Ambassador, we all know, or should know, that the IAEA has been basically accepting hearsay from third parties as to what the Iranians are doing in their laboratories and facilities. That's how absurd the context of this this so-called agreement has become. It's
Right.
not a treaty, it's an agreement. It is a fabrication and a list of desires, but in no way a binding, forceful agreement that constrains the Iranians to any point beyond perhaps 3 years out in the judgment of most.
Just for the edification of your viewers, even if this were a treaty, the president could pull out purely on his own anyway. But if you want a metric of diplomatic failure, this deal gives it to us. Compare the position of the Europeans in 2003 to what was agreed in 2015. And Barack Obama took them down that slope. So I think that the notion that the deal can be improved.
By the way, a slope with which President Obama was intimately familiar and constantly reintroducing it to the rest of us.
Yeah, he was the bobsled team leader, no doubt about it.
It's stunning stuff. But stunning to me is the tone taken by Tillerson and by Haley. And I have to ask you, where is the chief of staff? Where in the world is the communications department for this president? Because this looks so bad. The optics are horrific. The audio is even worse, coming from the ambassador of the United Nations and his Secretary of State, for crying out loud.
Yeah, I think if you believe that Iran can be trusted with any uranium enrichment, that you're fundamentally sticking with the Obama administration policy. And I don't think that's where we should be. I don't think that's where the president's going to come out. That's why in an op-ed in today's Wall Street Journal, I basically said that deal didn't die on Friday, but it's going to die soon enough.
Soon enough, but again, you've avoided the question I've asked. And that is, I want to put a point on it. How long can this president, how long should this president put up with, whether it's implication, whether it is the tone, whatever it be, outright contravention of what he is saying by his arguably his two most important representatives on matters of state?
Stop asking these hard questions. You know I can't answer that. I would make this point, though. I don't think any president should have key national security issues being discussed and debated by his subordinates in public. The administration, on national security in particular, has to speak with only one voice, and that's the voice of the president. As Jim Baker always used to say to me, explaining why he wouldn't do something that I wanted to, he'd say, because the guy who got elected doesn't want to do it. Here's the way the Constitution works. The guy who got elected gets to set foreign policy, not his subordinates.
Well, it is, I have to say, a rancorous moment amongst those serving the president, and it's of their doing, not the president's. This has become, the easy architecture here is to look at the globalists within his administration and those who are loyal most to him and to the ideas that he campaigned on. The chasm is getting wider and wider amongst those including Tillerson, and strangely enough, because only in July was Haley the one talking about withdrawing from the Iranian treaty. Much to be divined. We appreciate you taking us as far as you could toward the abyss of understanding and complete comprehension. We stopped just short. Ambassador John Bolton, thanks so much.
Thank you, Lou. Anytime.
Take care. Firefighters are finally starting to make progress against the wildfires that have ravaged California's wine country over the past week. The weather remains hot and winds are dying down somewhat. There is now a possibility, but later in the week. Fox News correspondent Claudia Cohen in Santa Rosa with our report.
Overall, things are feeling optimistic for us. We're very cautious about that.
Slow but steady progress 1 week after the start of the deadliest wildfires in California's history.
I'm getting a lot of black on the map. So the black sections on the map is where we feel comfortable on the fire's edge. So that's where the fire's not expanding anymore.
The number of large fires burning in the Golden State is down from 22 at its peak to 14, while containment is up considerably. And as some 11,000 firefighters douse what's left of the flames, some of the 100,000 people who were evacuated are now being allowed to go back home.
Goal is to get people in homes that are still livable. Helps everybody places to live, places to be, put things back to normal.
After all the devastation, we're one of the lucky ones. We just are. I mean, we have a house to come back to. We've got my work to come back to.
But many aren't so lucky.
Oh my God, the dining room.
Christina Schott walked through the charred remains of her Napa home.
It was like a fire tsunami. It was like a fireball. The winds were so fierce, so fierce.
And it's a similar story for thousands of others with nearly 6,000 homes and structures destroyed.
In this moment, I'm realizing you don't put your boots on and your gloves on and go sift through stuff. There's nothing to sift through.
And with dozens still reported as missing, law enforcement is dealing with the grim task of searching for residents who may not have made it out before the fires raced through.
We're not going to give ourselves a time limit, but we're going to find every missing person that gets reported.
In burned out neighborhoods like this one, utility crews have been busy fixing power and gas lines so more evacuation orders can be lifted. And with the weather working in their favor, at least for now, officials say they hope to have all of these fires contained by the end of the week. Lou.
Thank you very much, Claudia Cowan. And we could be 10 days away from the release of top secret documents on the JFK assassination nearly 54 years ago, and remaining sealed many of those documents. The CIA and the FBI have an October 26th deadline in which to approve the release of those government records without redaction and with all sorts of other things. Neither agency has said whether they will actually appeal to the president for continued secrecy, and the White House has been circumspect, perhaps even coy, about what President Trump will do. But I would urge the public's right to know remains, of course, on this broadcast, a matter of primacy for all public servants, including the president. We're coming right back with much more. Stay with us. President Trump today slamming crying Chuck Schumer and the Dems for their obstruction.
Schumer and the group are holding up every single nomination. They are obstructing. They're doing, it's really what, I'm telling you, they're not good politicians, but they're very good at obstruction.
Will the party of no ever change? Will the Republican Party ever get its act together? We take it all up with Ed Rollins here next. And President Trump calling on the NFL to suspend players who insult our country and our flag. NFL owners and players are meeting tomorrow. Whose side will they be on? We'll have the latest on gutless Goodell and the disgraceful NFL. Stay with us. We'll be right back. The wall. Where is the damn wall, you say? Well, we know where some prototypes are. 8 prototypes of the president's proposed southern border wall now being erected in San Diego. The 30-foot-tall concrete and steel sample barriers, some with reinforced bases, others topped with metal spikes, will undergo a testing and evaluation. The president's still waiting for Congress to approve funding for the construction of that wall. President Trump says he's still on good terms with Steve Bannon, as the former White House strategist, chief strategist, I should say, has pledged to go to war with the GOP establishment. But there was some inkling that he and the president would both be doing that. The president today said he can work with both Bannon and the Republican leadership in Congress.
Well, I have a very good relationship, as you know, with Steve Bannon. Steve's been a friend of mine for a long time. I like Steve a lot. Steve is doing what Steve thinks is the right thing. Some of the people that he may be looking at, I'm going to see if we talk him out of that, because frankly, they're great people.
Joining me now, Ed Rollins, chairman of the Great America PAC, a member of the Political Consultant Hall of Fame, yes, esteemed member, and Fox News contributor. Great to see you. And, you know, I believe the president's picked up something on politics. He's going to work with the establishment against
the establishment. That's a pretty good trick. The reality is there are people who need to be taught a lesson. Senator Flake is a perfect example, who wrote a whole book how...
Repeat that name, Senator who?
Senator Flake.
Senator Flake.
And I think getting in...
Sounds like a cartoon
getting
character,
in against him is, you know, he wrote a book on how he, and he would never be a Trump person. Governor Kasich is never going to be a Trump person.
And I have to believe President Trump is extraordinarily proud of that fact.
And so those are people that you basically don't necessarily have to do anything to help. And you certainly, if you can find someone who will replace them and support your policies, I think that's what you want to do. The idea of taking everybody out, I like Steve Bannon. I've talked to Steve Bannon at great length. What I tried to tell him is you've got to win. You can't basically take everybody on. You pick some out that you can win, and you go win, especially in the first phase of this, and that's what's going to become very important.
Well, you know, it's hard to think about some of the issues here. It's jarring to see, if we could see the picture with Mitch McConnell and the president today, talking about how long they've known each other, the president giving him, as I said at the outset, a big bear hug to bring him in, and I'll explain more of that, I think, tonight in my commentary, because what he's doing is he's really messing with the swamp. There's no bigger swamp creature on Capitol Hill than Mitch McConnell. Can he really do business, get something done with McConnell?
Well, the bottom line here is when he had this lunch today, first question I would ask him: do you have 52 votes for me in the Senate for my tax plan? Mm-hmm. You keep talking about health care. Do you have 52 votes for me for health care? It's the same conversation you should have had when Nancy Pelosi and them came over. How many votes do you have for me? Chuck Schumer, you want a deal? Great. How many votes? How many members do you have that are going to vote for me? And each time he's walked out of there, he hasn't got a vote. That kind of conversation in either case.
Yeah, my first question is, when are you going to kill the filibuster? When are you going to bust the filibuster, and let's get straight to 51 votes?
Well, the moment he does that,
50.
I mean, the president can do that. And the moment the president does that, we can move some legislation. There's over 200 pieces of legislation that have passed in the House that are sitting there in the Senate and will never be passed, and that includes the budgetary stuff, the health care stuff, the tax stuff, and every other agenda.
You and I both know nothing's going to happen if they can't hold everything to the 50 votes.
Absolutely, I agree. And it doesn't matter whether you get 2 or 3 more Senate seats. You basically, the Democrats can hold that 60 and will hold that 60. And I think to a certain extent, it's just the country deserves majority government. That's what they have voted for, and that's what they deserve.
You know what we've got here, I think, and I'd like to hear your thoughts. But it looks like the Republicans are spending almost as much time worrying about the Obama programs. They're looking at Dreamers, trying to figure out a way to save Dreamers, to save Obamacare. You know, for crying out loud, to save the Iranian deal. These are all the legacy. Their disastrous policy, their disastrous foreign policy, their disastrous domestic policy and economic policy, and the Republicans are trying to save all three.
Well, every element that's ever passed by Obama and anybody else always has a constituency group. Trump ran on certain things. He has to every day get up and here's my Bible, here are the things I promised, beginning with the conversation we had started this piece.
But Ed, I'm asking you to focus on those three things because they're disasters.
They are absolutely.
And this president and these Republican leaders are trying to save them.
Well, they can't save them, and the reality is that they need to move on. If the Democrats want to save DACA, it has to be part of an overall immigration bill that begins with a border security. They're never going to do that. So at the end of the day, do you give them what they want up top, and you don't get anything that you want on the bottom? That's not how you negotiate, and that's not what you
want to see a revolution. I think it is to continue with those three Obama legacy disasters. Try to resurrect them, to preserve them, to sustain them. Horrible policy. It's, you know, as the president pointed out to Congress and the Senate, Obamacare, for crying out loud, belongs to the Dems. It's around their neck. It's their millstone.
Right.
Why are they picking it up and putting it around their own?
Well, why is he apologetic for what he did the other day? What he did the other day is the Congress has never appropriated the money to pay off these insurance companies. His Justice Department said, you can't do that, Mr. President. And now everybody's saying, oh, my goodness, he's the bad guy. He's making the poor pay and all the rest of it. The reality is he's just living up to the Constitution. Make the Congress go out. You want to change it?
He needs to tell the Justice Department to go to hell, and he needs to tell Jeff Sessions to go to work.
Well, yeah, I think he's doing that.
All right.
Thank you.
Ed Rollins, always good to have a little sit down.
Thank you, sir.
Appreciate it. Be sure to vote in our poll tonight. Do you believe the best way for Mitch McConnell to, well, help Republicans out and make Republicans winners in the midterms is for him to resign as majority leader? I'd like to hear from you on that. Cast your vote on Twitter at Lou Dobbs. Follow me on Twitter at Lou Dobbs. Like me on Facebook and Instagram at Lou Dobbs tonight. Facebook, looking for employees who possess national security clearances. The social media giant once helped in preventing, they say, future meddling in our elections. But Facebook is essentially a political activist organization. It's not exactly what you would call an objective media organization. And the last thing, in my opinion, they should be given are employees with top secret clearances so they can create, well, an adjunct, if you will, or their own version of the NSA. Maybe closer cooperation between, say, the NSA, the FBI, the CIA even, and Facebook. But no, don't give them any more power than they already have. Mark Zuckerberg, I'm sure, is a perfectly lovely fellow. On Wall Street today, stocks closing at record highs. The Dow up 85 points, the S&P up 4, the Nasdaq up 18. Volume on the big board, 2.9 billion shares. Nordstrom shares plunged 5%, announcing it's suspending an effort to go private until after the holidays. That's because the brothers really went political and got themselves and their business screwed up to a fare-thee-well. And the Weinstein Company, speaking of being screwed up to a fare-thee-well, getting a lifeline from Colony Capital, which is in talks to buy the studio's assets as it deals with the fallout from the Harvey Weinstein scandal. And the interesting thing about that, Colony Capital is run by Tom Barrack, good friend of President Trump. What's going on here? And a reminder to listen to my reports 3 times a day, coast to coast on the Salem Radio Network. By the way, Tom Barrack said of the president he thought he could do better. He's a little disappointed in him. He said he's a better person than that. I think Tom Barrack's a better person than to be buying Weinstein assets. Oh, are you kidding me? Up next, President Trump and Mitch McConnell making nice in a White House news conference, impromptu as it was, their relationship, well, long-standing. And that relationship is the subject of my commentary coming right up. Much more straight ahead. We'll have fun. President Trump today giving one of the D.C. swamp's leading creatures a great big old bear hug. It's a term of art on Wall Street when a company offers to pay way too much to buy up a company not up for sale. The president apparently forgiving all and embracing, only figuratively of course, the majority leader during an impromptu news conference in the Rose Garden. The president extolled Mitch McConnell's splendid qualities, of which there are many. McConnell extolling tax reform rather than mere tax cuts further embraced by the president. Remember when McConnell back in August refused to take responsibility for the Senate's failures to get anything done? Instead, he blamed President Trump's, quote, excessive expectations. The president at the time said he was very disappointed and demanded the majority leader get to work. But there they were today, together. The president saying they're closer than ever.
My relationship with this gentleman is outstanding, has been outstanding. We are working very hard to get the tax cuts. We will continue to work hard to get the health care completed.
I want to underscore what the president said. We have the same agenda. We've been friends and acquaintances for a long time. We talk frequently.
I love the fact that the president is trying, but McConnell has failed this president too many times and used him badly in Alabama. There led him astray in the state's special election, led him to back establishment candidate Luther Strange, who Judge Roy Moore beat like a mule in a runoff. McConnell's future as majority leader depends on delivering victories for this president, and the Senate has just 39 days left in session this year with a very long list of things to achieve. In business and finance, there's a saying that there's no such thing as an exorbitant price, only a price no one will pay. But in politics, in this particular bear hug in particular, McConnell's price may well be exorbitant. There's another saying that comes to mind, and that is, it's awfully hard to do good business with bad people. In Washington, the president really doesn't seem to have much choice if he's to do business at all on Capitol Hill. Our quotation of the evening, this from Abraham Lincoln. He said, quote, "You cannot escape the responsibility of tomorrow by evading it today." We're coming right back with much, much more. Please stay with us. North Korea lobbing more insults at the United States, and the insults not very original, calling President Trump a mad dog. And rocket man Kim Jong-un reacts to the start of major military exercises between the United States and South Korea. General Jack Keane will be here next to sort it all out. And this brave daredevil is channeling Spider-Man as he leaps from building to building. We'll show you his breathtaking stunts right here next. You don't want to miss the video. Stay with us. We'll be right back with it. President Trump says he's not taking sides in the fighting between the Iraqi military and the Kurds.
We don't like the fact that they're clashing. We're not taking sides, but we don't like the fact that they're clashing. We've had for many years very good relationship with the Kurds, as you know, and we've also been on the side of Iraq. Even though we should have never been in there in the first place, we should never have been there, but we're not taking sides in that battle.
Joining us now to sort it all out, retired four-star General, Fox Business military analyst Jack Keane. General, good to have you here.
Yeah, good to be here, Lou.
Do we have really the choice of not taking sides?
Well, I think what we should do is push towards a more favorable outcome than where we're headed. You know, what's really happened, this began back in the Obama administration when Obama pulled away from Iraq politically. Early in his administration, 2009, pulled the troops out in 2011. That gave the Iranians incredible influence. And that influence, despite our military assistance to the Iraqis and despite the success we've had against ISIS, that political influence that Iran has been significant. And there's some holdovers that the Trump administration has in Iraq that should be gone because they minimize Iran's political influence when the political influence and the political objective is the strategic end state, and it is significant what they're achieving.
Are those holdovers from the Obama administration coloring this decision as well as then the Iranian nuclear deal in your judgment?
I can't speak to their influence in the Iranian nuclear deal. I don't think so, but I know they're influencing this decision, and they're also influencing the decision in eastern Syria not to contest the Iranians. Now, what I think should happen here is, listen, the Kurds need to get some credit for the 18 months before military assistance kicked in. They really were saving the Iraqis. They were the only fighting force of any consequence in Iraq. So we can't just go back to the status quo where we were before ISIS hostilities, which is, I think, where the Trump administration is. We've got to give the Kurds some consideration, a little bit more autonomy, maybe a little bit more leverage with the oil that they're receiving. Some concession has to be made to them.
This can only end badly for the Kurds if the Iranians intended to be so. They wouldn't be moving this far if the Iranians did not mean to defeat them.
Oh, absolutely.
And that means that our choosing neutrality is just a really lousy choice.
Our major strategic objective should have been all through the Obama administration and now inside of Iraq is to reduce the strategic and political influence of the Iranians. It's more important than actually dealing with ISIS because it deals with the end state of Iraq. And Iran is all over the government of Iraq. And clearly, they are pushing back on the Kurds.
And I want to, before we have to go, I want to touch on North Korea.
Yeah.
Kim Jong-un resorting to stealing one of the names of the president's cabinet members, James Mattis, calling Trump mad dog. I think he managed, probably, Kim Jong-un, to upset two people, Mad Dog Mattis himself and the president as well.
Well, the one you don't want to upset is Mad Dog Mattis.
I think that is exactly.
But listen, no, I mean, this rhetoric will continue. This exercise that you referenced in the introduction, important stuff. This is real training taking place with real capabilities out there. And that's the kind of
the exercises between South Korea and the United States.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's important to have those exercises. We're never going to give up on that because that's how we're reinforcing our allies. And also, from a practical perspective, we need the experience, we need the training to make sure we can do the war the way we want to.
Well, I think it is encouraging that the Trump policies on North Korea seem to be working. Kim Jong-un appears to have run out of original material, so we'll see how it goes. General Jack Keane, always good to have you here.
He hasn't run out of material for sure, though.
Material. Up next, President Trump blasting Democrats, calling the Russian probe just an excuse for their losing the presidential election.
There has been absolutely no collusion. It's been stated that they have no collusion. They ought to get to the end of it because I think the American public is sick of it.
A bellyful, if you will. Tom Fitton takes up the Russia witch hunt and some peculiar machinations in the Department of Justice. We'll take that up with him here next. Stay with us. We'll be right back. The opposition research firm Democrats paid to compile the infamous Trump dossier is now trying to fight congressional subpoenas. Lawyers, noble lawyers for Fusion GPS and its founder Glenn Simpson say the House Intelligence Committee is acting in bad faith. Oh, this is just stunning stuff. And they are threatening to plead the Fifth Amendment and refuse to testify. Wow, there is a noble position. The FBI has located 30 documents connected to the controversial 2016 tarmac meeting between former President Bill Clinton and Attorney General Loretta Lynch. The papers detailing the interaction between the former president and Obama's Secretary of State will be released next month. Judicial Watch requesting those records earlier this year. They were initially told by the Justice Department that those documents don't exist. Guess what? The Justice Department, should I say lied, or should I say they found out they were inaccurate? We're joined by Tom Fitton. He is the president of Judicial Watch. And again, you keep counting coup here. Another victory and another important one for the public's right to know. So congratulations.
Thank you.
And Tom, how can this be that the Justice Department doesn't know about these documents or chooses to just straight out lie to you and subsequently all of us?
Yeah, you got to ask what's going on. We had 2 lawsuits against both the Justice Department and the FBI. The FBI said they looked, they couldn't find anything. The Justice Department lawsuit, we finally got some documents last month that showed that the Justice Department was talking to the FBI about the Clinton-Lynch tarmac meeting. So the FBI said, oh, well, it looks like we might have documents. We're going to reopen your case and go and find them. Right. And that's when we found out they have 30 documents. Look, the only reason, I don't think this was an oversight. I don't think this was a mistake. I think we caught them. We caught them red-handed, and now they've had to fess up to the documents.
As you've done more often than otherwise, they can't be straight. And this sort of tells you what the problem is. The American people have a government that is corrupt. The American people have a government, and it's not necessarily because someone takes money, although I'm sure there's lots of that, but it's so political, so politicized, it's politically corrupt and ideologically corrupt. It's stunning stuff. And we, by the way, now that you've got word that you've got the documents, when do you actually get them and what shape will they be in? Will there be words actually still on the pages when you get them?
Well, that's the big question. The government says they need up until November 30th to turn the documents over to us. So
30 pages. They can't read 30 pages in less than a month and a half.
You know, Director Wray, who's now head of the FBI, you know, there is a new head of the FBI after Comey was fired. I would think he might want to ask questions about what went on here. By the way, we were told no back when Comey was FBI director. Yeah, what did he? The idea they didn't know they had documents, just strange credulity. And this is why Wray and Jeff Sessions, to the degree he's not recused, because he may be recused from this, I don't know. Rod Rosenstein, whoever the responsible official, needs to take a look at this. This is a fundamental question of whether we can trust our nation's law enforcement agency, the FBI and the Justice Department, not to break the law and not to be dishonest. Yeah, and you know, we're in the middle of a court case here, and they tell us we don't have documents. You know, what are we supposed to do? Go to the court every time saying the FBI is lying? We got to rely on the FBI and the Justice Department to tell us the truth from time to time.
Tell me why people should have any other belief about the FBI now than that's where investigations go to die. I can't think of a major scandal that has been resolved by the investigation of the FBI. Can you, Tom? I'm talking about going back to Fast and Furious, you name it. They never reach a conclusion. Benghazi, they never reach a conclusion. There's
IRS.
Never a report.
IRS.
This is something rancid and wrong at justice.
Well, especially when the Justice Department or the FBI are implicated in the scandals, you're never going to get the truth, or it's going to be difficult to do so. Just last week, we're asking for the Comey memos. We sued for the Comey memos that he supposedly wrote. The Justice Department came in and said, we can't have one of them, any of it, because it would interfere with Mueller's investigation. So now this Justice Department is working with Mueller to keep information that Comey leaked to the New York Times away from the American people.
And
unbelievable.
And the Republican Senate leadership and the Republican House leadership haven't got the guts to say enough and end it now.
You know,
Tom,
you talked to me. Go ahead.
I'm sorry, Tom. We're way over. I'm going to have to get you back here soon. All right? We'll take it up. Tom Fitton, Judicial Watch. Thanks so much, and again, congratulations and thanks.
You're welcome. Thank you.
A Chinese space station hurtling out of control and threatening the lives of those of us here on the Blue Rock. The 8.5-ton satellite expected to crash into Earth sometime between this fall and April of next year. That's narrowing it down, right? Most parts of the space lab are expected to burn up in the atmosphere. Large chunks of metal, however, could still be raining down on areas that we hope will not be inhabited. We'll keep you posted. Up next, President Trump today targeting the NFL.
It is very disrespectful to our country when they take a knee during the national anthem, number one. Number two, the people of our country are very angry at the NFL. All you have to do is look at their ratings and look at their stadiums. You see empty seats where you never saw them before. A lot of people are very angry at it. It is highly disrespectful. They shouldn't do it.
Rachel Campos Duffy, Niger Innes join me right after the break. We'll take it all up. Stay with us. Joining us tonight, Fox Business contributor Rachel Campos Duffy, national spokesperson for the Congress on Racial Equality, and conservative commentator Niger Innes. Good to have you both with us. The owners are meeting tomorrow, Rachel. Do you expect to see these protests resolved and the NFL say we're sorry for insulting the nation and everyone else?
Well, I do think that the president rightly pointed out that there's a lot of empty seats out there. Look, this is a cultural issue. The president is winning on this. Hillary, by the way, today came out and said she stands with Kaepernick and Antifa and people who burn flags and disrespect our flags. Essentially, that's what she's saying. So if that's where the Democrat Party wants to be, Trump wins all the way. And the NFL, boy, they just don't understand their customers. They got to learn from NASCAR, who really knows and loves their own fans.
Yeah, it's stunning, Niger, how absolutely remote and tone deaf Goodell and the owners are here.
They are completely tone deaf, and political correctness has a real cost. By some estimates, viewership, attendance in the stadiums is down some 15 to 20% from a couple of years ago, and that makes no sense. NFL has gone from being the most popular American sport to the least popular because of all these protests, which we all know is based on a fraud.
Yeah, it may be worse than that. We know that the ratings are down just about 20% from 2015. We're also looking at, we can't get numbers on merchandise sales, but Rachel, it looks like it's substantial as well, obviously, and the attendance down at least 10% this year by most measures. Why in the world are the Democrats going down this path? They lose, and they know they lose.
They can't help themselves, but you're right. I mean, I remember during the campaign season, I did an event with Fox and Friends, and we interviewed a lot of independent Democrats, the ones that the Democrats lost, by the way, and the topic of the flag came up, and they were with Trump on the flag. There was a conversation during the campaign about burning the flag. The Democrats that they lost love America, they love their vets, they love the military, and they like the NFL until this. So I don't understand what the NFL is doing, but they're alienating their customers.
Let me turn very quickly to Weinstein and what's going on now. There is a culture that has been exposed in Hollywood And it's interesting. People are moving beyond just saying it's a culture of sexual harassment. It's a cover-up. And that Hollywood actually is, in the minds of many, an evil place. And it's being revealed in many ways to be precisely that, Niger.
Absolutely. Not only evil, but full of hypocrisy, of liberal hypocrisy. For those who love to play victims and love to point the fingers at, bad old white men, here's an example of a real predator within the Hollywood community that's been a mainstay of Democratic donorship. And these folk like Meryl Streep and Hillary Clinton and Barack Obama, the silence has been deafening, Lou, deafening.
What do you expect to happen next? I mean, people are really reacting. Are we going to see some sort of backlash, do you believe, Rachel, toward Hollywood, music, movies, you name it?
Well, I definitely think that middle America is sick of being lectured to by these elites in Hollywood and their moral superiority. We see what an underbelly there is. And yes, there's going to be a cleanup, but boy, it's going to need to be a big one.
Amen.
Well, it's a job worth doing, certainly. Rachel Campos-Duffy, good to see you. Niger Ennis, thank you so much.
Good to see you too.
Thank you.
That's it for us tonight. We thank you for being with us. Be with us tomorrow. Special coverage of President Trump's speech to the Heritage Foundation. We'll be right here. We hope you will too. Good night from New York.